It's difficult to give Trump's first 100 days a grade, but if I had to, I'd say it falls somewhere between F and U. And hey, don't get me wrong. I will say there have been some positives. Unfortunately, they've all been pregnancy tests for women who slept with Elon Musk, but there have been some positives. Last night that Trump's approval rating is the lowest of any president at this point in his term since they've been doing polls like this, at least 80 years, maybe 90 years.
Donald Trump built his image on being untouchable. Jimmy Kimmel cracked that illusion with timing sharp enough to cut. This wasn't comedy for cheap laughs. It was a methodical takedown. Every boast, every tantrum, every carefully staged performance was stripped away one layer at a time until the facade collapsed. Kimmel targeted the weak spot Trump tried hardest to hide: a fragile ego, an ego addicted to praise and allergic to ridicule. He exposed a leader who governed through tweets, treated criticism as treason, and confused intimidation with strength. The brilliance was its simplicity. Kimmel didn't invent insults. He let Trump's own words do the damage. The myth didn't explode. It eroded, and what remained wasn't a titan of power, but a reality TV star who forgot the cameras never stopped rolling.
You're in a good mood. I am in a great mood, too. I've had a day of revelry and jubilation as I celebrate Donald Trump's 100th day in office. I assume there'd be a big round of applause. No? We have, 100 days behind us and only 13 more 100 days to go. It's been an historic 100 days. Some would say
Trump treated the White House like an NX of Trump Tower. Flashy, hollow, branded into MEANINGLESS. Jimmy Kimmel detonated that fantasy on sight. This wasn't leadership. It was late-night QVC in a red tie, selling nationalism like a bargain bin blender. Every chest-thumping promise of greatness revealed. A man hooked on bragging about victories that never happened. Kimmel's comedy didn't just mock the act. It stripped it bare. The billionaire builder shrank into a hollow logo. The leader of the free world became a pitchman without a product. And the audience didn't just laugh. They finally saw the conduct.
Well, sadly, the injury to his ankle meant Guillermo was unable to make the trip to Rome for the Pope's funeral. He was supposed to represent the United States. They had to send the president instead. President Trump flew to Rome to pay his respects and also to see if he could get a deal on the Pope mobile to drive around his golf course. For whatever reason, even though the Vatican dress code specifically recommended a dark suit for the service, Trump showed up in his bluest blue suit. Something from the Cedric the Entertainer funeral.
You're enjoying this. Subscribe because it only gets worse from here. Trump's obsession with crowd sizes was the first warning sign. This presidency wasn't about governing. It was an ego management seminar disguised as power. While past presidents focused on policy, Trump counted heads like a wedding DJ guarding the buffet. Jimmy Kimmel turned the biggest inauguration crowd ever into one of the most famous delusions in political history. Empty space became oceans of supporters, at least inside Trump's imagination. Then the photos arrived, and reality didn't negotiate. One wide-angle lens was enough to shatter the myth. Trump erupted. Kimmel didn't just mock the lie, he exposed the insecurity underneath it.
Oh, man, if Obama wore in a blue suit to the Pope's funeral, Sean Hannity's head would explode inside Trump's ass. The fact that he was the only person not wearing a dark suit did not go unnoticed. So the White House press secretary pushed back. She said the president looked great and presidential alongside our stunning first lady, who was, as usual, dressed perfectly for the occasion. And she's right about Melania. I don't know about stunning, but she definitely looks stunned. Show them together, because this is the happiest I've ever seen these two together. It's like they're on their second honeymoon or something.
Then came the tweets. Those infamous 3 a.m. meltdowns where Trump treated world policy like a reality show confessional. Jimmy Kimmel called it perfectly. No leader in history had tried to run global affairs by yelling into a phone like a teenager live blogging a breakup. Trump turned Twitter into a launch pad for grudges. Picking fights with comedians, athletes, and department stores instead of governing, the White House became a green room for resentment. Diplomacy turned into score-settling. Kimmel didn't exaggerate. He didn't embellish. He simply held up the mirror.
Even Fox News has the president polling poorly, which is a fact that did not go over bigly with Trump spokesgoblin Stephen Miller.
New Fox News poll shows that the border has been one of your successes, but everything else, he's sort of underwater. What do you say?
Well, I don't want to make things awkward for you, John, but it is our opinion that Fox News needs to fire his pollster.
Great idea.
Only Trump could pick a public fight with Macy's and Nordstrom for dropping his family's gaudy brand. Jimmy Kimmel exposed the irony flawlessly. The so-called business titan couldn't even keep his name on a tie rack. This wasn't the art of the deal. It was the clearance aisle of irrelevance. While past presidents faced wars and recessions, Trump raged and tweeted like a rejected shopper demanding a manager. Kimmel revealed the truth. The master negotiator couldn't even negotiate shelf space.
The prices that Donald Trump promised to bring down on day one are still going up. You know the store Dollar Tree, where everything cost $1? Because of inflation, Dollar Tree had to raise their prices to $1.25. And now because of these big, beautiful tariffs, they're reportedly planning to raise prices again, which is a problem because the store is called Dollar Tree. And so now they've even had to make adjustments to their commercials.
Kimmel's sharpest jokes landed hardest because they exposed Trump's biggest contradiction. He bragged about strength while radiating insecurity. He spoke like George Washington reborn, but sulked like a kid picked last for dodgeball. No exaggeration was necessary. The hypocrisy collapsed under its own weight. Then came the comedy that tore into the spectacle of a president dispensing medical advice. Like a late-night infomercial, science was replaced with slogans. Compassion was traded for ratings. Press briefings turned into episodes of The Apprentice. A national tragedy treated as a PR contest.
We're now one step closer to finding out which winning town, either Indianapolis or Oklahoma City, will host a much bigger parade than our president's G.I. Joe themed birthday party this weekend. Won't that be fun? So, on Saturday, Trump had this, his much anticipated stupid Sweet 16. Disguised as a tribute to the U.S. Army, he bone spurred his way out of. After all the hype and money, somewhere around $50 million, it was boring. It was basically a $50 million version of when a 5-year-old shows you every car in his Hot Wheels collection.
Kimmel's genius was framing Trump's failures as predictable. Not tragic, Trump didn't run to lead. He ran to stay famous, and Kimmel twisted the knife by showing how fame without credibility curdles into mockery. The louder Trump demanded respect, the deeper he sank into punchline territory. He dreamed of statues and eternal glory. What he earned was satire. The tough guy act collapsed into the spectacle of a man terrified of irrelevance. Kimmel didn't just roast him, he exposed him.
Talk about how this wasn't a birthday party for him. It kind of seemed like a birthday party for him. Yeah. They wrapped his new iPad in a flag. It was a lot of fun. What a birthday. It wasn't just, and they gave him a fireworks show on top of that. There's Sleepy Don taking it all in. And in fairness, that's as close as he gets to being able to sleep with his wife, so he took the opportunity. This is really good. This almost makes me feel bad for him, almost. So it's his birthday, and while there's no good reason for us to be paying to celebrate it, you'd think his wife might celebrate it, right? They're married, and well, watch this. Look at his hand. He makes a little move to lock pinkies, and nope. That's known as the Slovenian snub. And then it was time for the man who knows more than all of the generals combined to show his military acumen.
The U.S. Army has driven bayonets into the heart of sinister empires, crushed the ambitions of evil tyrants beneath the threads of American tanks.
That's right. Don't thread on me.
Trump projected regal confidence, but crumbled whenever admiration failed to arrive on schedule. Jimmy Kimmel dismantled the grand image, revealing a presidency built on clumsy performances and public missteps, awkward summits, undignified behavior, endless fun. Kimmel spotlighted the contradiction. A man demanding to be taken seriously while behaving in ways that invited ridicule. What could have been framed as a heroic era instead became a long-running comedy, a presidency remembered through the lens of satire.
Back to shoplifting for me. And then we have the Easter dummy, Donald Trump, who, don't worry, is making lots of money, and he's spending money, too, specifically our money. President Trump has been doing an extreme makeover of the White House. Everything's gold. Look at this room. It's all gold. The press secretary called it the golden office for the golden age, which is quite a spin. And for such an anti-DEI kind of guy, you wouldn't think he'd have the same taste as Liberace, but he does.
Kimmel exposed the core contradiction at the heart of Trump's leadership. He branded himself dominant, but governed reactively, constantly chasing validation. Each new controversy chipped away at the image he worked so hard to project. Instead of a legacy of achievement, the presidency became defined by chaos and self-inflicted wounds. The gap between myth and reality grew impossible to ignore. History didn't record triumph. It recorded turbulence.
He is very proud of himself for making a trade agreement with a country we were trading with just fine until he screwed it all up. This is funny. One of the companies that's getting a break from this deal is Rolls-Royce. So rest easy, Ma and Pa MAGA hat. You're still going to lose the farm, but you'll only have to pay 10% extra on that Rolls-Royce you've had your eye on.
On cars, we took it from 25 to 10 on Rolls-Royce because Rolls-Royce is not going to be built here. I wouldn't even ask them to do that. You know, it's a very special car. And unless somebody shows me that there's another kind of a car that's comparable to a Rolls-Royce, then there aren't too many. This is a good commercial for Rolls-Royce. I'm going to order a lot of cars.
Mr. President, I wonder whether you'd like to buy.
You know, the last time that happened, I ended up buying a Tesla. You know.
He's still pronouncing it Tesla. And where is that Tesla you allegedly? He gave the Tesla to Melania.
Kimmel's approach revealed a brutal truth that many preferred to ignore. Donald Trump was never untouchable. He was self-sabotaging in plain sight. What made the comedy so effective wasn't cruelty or exaggeration. It was restraint. Kimmel didn't invent scandals or twist facts. He simply replayed Trump's own words and trusted the audience to connect the dots. That confidence turned satire into exposure. Trump sold himself as a strong man, dominant, decisive, immune to pressure. But the behavior told a different story. A leader who reacted instead of planned, who escalated instead of resolved, who treated every slight as an emergency and every joke as an attack. Power was his costume. Insecurity was the engine underneath it. Kimmel understood that contradiction instinctively, so he framed Trump not as a tragic figure or an evil mastermind, but as something far more damaging, predictable. A man whose reactions followed the same script every time. Praise brought calm. Criticism brought chaos. Attention was oxygen, and silence felt like suffocation. The punchlines worked because they weren't punches, they were mirrors. Trump's boasts, played back without commentary, sounded absurd on their own. His contradictions stacked up naturally. His promises collided with his behavior. And the image he tried to project cracked under repetition. The invincible strongman slowly became a recurring character. Not a ruler above events, but a man unraveling in real time. Tweet by tweet, interview by interview, rally by rally. Losses accumulated, legal, political, personal, even as Trump continued to declare victory at every turn. Court setbacks became witch hunts, electoral defeats became fraud, investigations became persecution, reality itself became the enemy. Kimmel didn't need to argue with those claims. He let the pattern speak. A man who never lost was always explaining why he hadn't really lost. A winner who spent all his energy denying defeat. Confidence so loud it sounded like fear. What made the critique cut deeper was its tone. There was no rage, no screaming, no moral grandstanding. Just calm repetition and timing, sharp enough to let the audience sit with the discomfort. Delivered without fury, the message landed harder. Trump's persona collapsed not because of one scandal or one joke, but because of accumulation, the endless feuds, the petty grudges, the obsession with ratings and applause, the inability to let anything go. A president who demanded respect while fighting with comedians, athletes, corporations, and television hosts, a leader who spoke of greatness while obsessing over crowd sizes and cable news segments. The dissonance became impossible to ignore. Kimmel showed how fame without credibility curdles into mockery, how branding without substance becomes parody, how authority without restraint turns into spectacle. The more Trump insisted on his own dominance, the more he drifted into punchline territory. The harder he pushed the myth, the more fragile it looked. This wasn't character assassination. It was character preservation. Trump's own unedited, unfiltered, unprotected history often remembers leaders through achievements or disasters. Trump's presidency became remembered through repetition. The same behaviors replayed, the same grievances recycled, the same self-inflicted wounds reopened by the end. The image of the unstoppable titan was gone. What remained was a man terrified of irrelevance, fighting the passage of time, fighting criticism, fighting jokes, fighting reality itself. Kimmel didn't destroy the myth. He let it collapse under its own weight.
Got England. When your daughter asks for a Barbie for Christmas this year, just say, we can't afford that, honey, but maybe you'd like some John Smedley knitwear? This trade agreement is the biggest deal Trump has made with Britain since the time he convinced them to make his stunt double their prime minister. Today, the current British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was not able to be at the White House, but he did call in to kiss some ass via speakerphone.
Donald, thank you so much. It's really good to have this deal over the line. Tribute to both teams, tribute to our countries, and tribute to your leadership.
Keir, thank you very much.
Thanks, Donald, and we'll speak again soon.
Very good. So long. Bye.
The ending lands heavy. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't just mock Donald Trump. He redefines him not as the disruptor Trump claimed to be, not as the media manipulator he styled himself as, not even as the self-proclaimed strongman who promised victory at every turn. All of it dissolves under the weight of comedy. The bravado, the chest-thumping, the unstoppable image stripped bare by timing, repetition, and careful observation leaves a man exposed to the audience. And the applause he spent years chasing returns in a form he never anticipated. Laughter, every gesture, every tweet, every staged performance meant to cement power, respect, and historical relevance crumbles into punchlines. The legacy he envisions, statues, monuments, headlines, slips through his fingers. Not through scandal or policy failure, but through the quiet, relentless truth of comedy. Kimmel's genius lies in the method. He doesn't invent humiliation. He doesn't twist facts into grotesque shapes. He simply reflects them. Trump's own words, actions, and obsessions become the material. The contradictions, the obsession with perception all land naturally. Without embellishment, the result is devastating. The man who wanted monuments, who dreamt of eternal recognition, is remembered in satire. The invincible persona evaporates. What survives is a caricature not preserved by greatness but by jokes. Irony becomes the epitaph. The legend of a leader who claimed mastery over power, politics, and perception is replaced by the story of a man who couldn't govern attention, couldn't survive scrutiny, and couldn't withstand ridicule. This is the brilliance of Kimmel's work. He turns hubris into humor, ego into exposition, myth into mirror. Trump's obsession with spectacle crowd sizes, ratings, constant coverage once seemed like a symbol of dominance. Now, through Kimmel's lens, it reads as insecurity on parade. Every claim of triumph, every boast of success, becomes a moment to laugh, a tiny stage where reality contradicts performance. The applause Trump craved, the validation he demanded, is replaced by a sound far less controllable. Laughter. It's louder than approval. It's more permanent than fleeting headlines. And it doesn't require cooperation from the audience. Comes naturally. As viewers recognize the gap between projection and reality, even his most calculated attempts at dominance backfire under comedic scrutiny. Attempts to assert strength, to intimidate, to control perception collapse under the weight of timing and observation. Each performance, each public appearance becomes a vignette of contradiction, a highlight reel for irony. The man who treated the White House like an extension of Trump Tower, who tweeted grievances at 3 a.m., who measured power in applause meters and retweets is not as a figure of authority, but as a figure of entertainment. The presidency, once the pinnacle of power, becomes a stage for absurdity. Kimmel doesn't just mock Trump, he exposes the fragility behind the image. He shows that strength was performance, that dominance was illusion, that control was temporary, and that ego was the engine of chaos. In this reframing, the narrative of greatness evaporates. What remains isn't scandal. It isn't failure in office. It isn't policy mistakes or electoral defeats. It's laughter. And laughter, in its own way, is indelible. Trump chased history. He demanded recognition. He demanded respect. He demanded monuments. What he received, instead, is preservation not in bronze or stone, but in punchlines. Not in headlines or biographies, but in the memory of satire. He lives on as a character defined not by triumph, but by the humor his actions inspired. This is irony at its most permanent. The stronger the claim, the greater the contradiction, the sharper the comedic reveal. Every action he took to amplify his legend fed the narrative that would outlast him. The man who wanted monuments is remembered in jokes. The leader who demanded reverence is laughed at. The persona he curated with tweets, television, and spectacle collapses into caricature. And in the end, irony becomes his epitaph. Not malice, not scandal, not history books laughter. It is enduring. It is unyielding. It is permanent. Jimmy Kimmel didn't just roast Donald Trump, he archived him. Not in statues, not in legacies of policy or power, but in punchlines, and that is the final truth. That is the final truth.